Hello and welcome to Sullivan's Farm. Bit of a Groundhog Day scenario for the yearling cattle at the moment. They're still stepping it out and stepping it in again like Lanigan's ball to silage and cubes and that overnight, and then out onto grass for a few hours during the day. But the weather's cold, and it has been cold, and it's going to be cold, so there's no grass growing, and they're going to have to do that for at least another week or 10 days. I'll try and do a grass walk in the meantime and see how much is there or how much isn't there, and we'll come up with a plan then. But I'm kind of resigned to at least another week of bales in and bales out and stepping them in and stepping them out. So the lesson, I guess, for me there is no matter what the weather is next year, don't let them out so early, and maybe let out the smaller ones who seem to have done very well, or they seem to have gained more than the bigger ones by being out early. But the weather's probably going to be completely different next year. So a bit of a Groundhog Day, but what is changing in the next week and the next couple of weeks here is inside in the new shed, as the new calves will start arriving. So sure, look, we'll go in for a look at them anyway, or we'll go in for a look at the shed and how it's half ready for them. We'll show you these. We'll have a chat about these in a minute too. These are the big 12 that are left of last year's cattle, or 2 years ago cattle, but weigh those during the week as well as the yearlings to see how they did, and not a pretty picture, but look, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll start with something more positive. This is the start of the new shed being laid out for the calves that are going to start arriving in the next couple of days, and then slowly over the next week. Probably throw in another bale of straw just to get them going right so they can nest in it. The one concern I'd have with the new shed, because this is the first time we're putting calves into it, is that it's a little bit too open and a little bit too airy. So that's something we just need to keep an eye on. So we'll have a look at the different bits and pieces there in a minute. So it is fairly open. Now the prevailing wind comes from behind the shed, so it's sheltered, but equally it's very airy. This green netting is something herself suggested. She was over yesterday keeping an eye on things, and it was nice. The younger lads came over as well, and they helped throw in some of the straw. You can see there as well. So they're earning their pay as well. What I try to do, I'm buying 30 calves, or I have 30 calves bought, and the plan is to do something similar as last year and divide the shed into 6 pens. So there's 5 calves per pen. This is the first pen here. This works as a manger and as a divider between the second pen, or as the young lads call it, there's 6 different classes and there's 5 in each classroom. So we must finish putting that up yet. Then we're down to halfway. This is the gate of the shed itself. And then we're making dividers down here too. Now, they're deliberately, I'm telling myself, they're deliberately left unfinished at the moment because I don't know how calves are going to go in the first 2 pens here. So the calves will see things that I can't see, and they'll do things that I can't guess at this stage. So when we see how the first 10 go, then we'll know about putting up the barriers for the rest of them down here. So that's my excuse for not finishing it anyway, and I'm sticking to it. It's a couple of bags of lime there. We'll be keeping that topped up with all the safety precautions, because apparently it can be nasty stuff if it gets in your eyes or up your nose or any kind of on your skin or anything like that. So I won't show you my hands. I've 30 calves bought, 20 Frisian heifer calves. I'm picking up the 10 of them tomorrow, and 10 then in a few days' time, and then 10 Angus bull calves probably early the week after in reality at this stage. And taking them in bunches like that helps me get them settled in, and it gives me a chance to make sure they're all settled in and they're all drinking, rather than trying to get the 30 of them all going in the one day or in the one couple of days. So we'll see how those 10 get on. I'll collect the next 10 then a couple of days after that, and then the Angus bull calves a few days after that again. So we'll have our 30 calves in then, we'll close the gates, and that'll be that. We'll see how they go. So that's pretty much it on the calf side. A few little bits, I suppose, to show. Again, we're into something of a new routine this year because they're out here in this new shed. Previously, they were in the older sheds, the older cubicle sheds. You can see behind us there. And again, I suppose like anything, it's only when I started taking things down from there and putting them in here, I realised like the system I had last year wasn't too bad. And it's not the first time I've noticed that. Now, I'm not changing things for the sake of changing them, but you start to appreciate, I guess, what you had right with the previous feeding. So we'll see how it goes. At the moment, what we'll have to do is walk from that door. We'll go in a second and just carry the milk out to the shed there. So not a huge distance, but equally not as close as I was last year when it was all under the one roof. Some of them were in that part of the shed behind the green door there. More of them were in that part of the shed. So that was, in hindsight, a little bit easier. And we might go back to that. We'll see how things go with the new shed first anyway. So we'll go in and see a couple of the bits and pieces that I use to heat the milk and measure the milk and mix the milk and all that stuff. There's still some of the barley and maize and beet pulp, the mixing station I was showing you previously, for the bigger cattle, but that's nearly all gone. I've increased how much they're getting. They're probably getting 3 kgs a day at the moment, and we get into one of the lessons from them in a minute as well. They should have been getting maybe 2 kgs all along, but look, you live and learn. But this then is the calf milk powder mixing station. I've 2 barrels here. There's the heater, and that's working out just fine. So it's on a timer, simple analog timer. I got a digital one, and sure, it was more complicated than what I needed. So that cuts in at a certain time in the morning and a certain time in the evening. When I arrive over in the morning or in the evening, then the water is warm enough. We'll throw it into those buckets there. We'll give them all a good sterilisation. I have little tablets for it and all, Milton or whatever they're called. And we'll be ready to rock with the buckets then. And then we'll take the milk powder out from its little cubby hole in here. We'll show you where it's from again. Little bit of product placement. I'd love to tell you I was getting paid for that, but I put it, I think I said it to you before, I put it in this little kind of a cubby hole thing to keep crows and badgers or anything else that might ever stick its head in away from it. It happened a couple of years ago. I think it was crows, but Jesus, some of the claw marks on it, I was starting to think maybe it was badgers. So I wasn't going to take any chances. The rest of the bags are down in the other shed at the road, and I just bring them up kind of 10 at a time as I need them. Put them in there. I must bring actually the weighing scales over as well, just to double check the weight of the jug plus the powder, and then we'll go from there. And then we'll start putting up notes again into the little pens. There's 2 of them from last year. They weren't weighed until the first week of July. Which, look, there's kind of some of the mix and measurements. 1.5 each to be all fairly accurate kind of stuff. 700ml jug, 3.3 kgs. A few more little checks and bits and pieces to be done, and then we'll play it by ear. It'll be every man for himself when the calves start arriving. And then when the next bunch arrive, we'll be a little bit wiser, and when the third bunch arrive, we'll be an absolute genius at it. I weighed them last week. We weighed the yearlings first because I wanted to see how they did over the winter. And in fairness, they did very well on the rape and on the few cubes and the silage outside. And there's some really nice Angus bullocks in particular there, and Angus heifers too, and the Belgian blue ones are doing fairly well as well. So that's something that went well. What didn't go so well is the weights of the bigger cattle inside in the cubicles. And I guess the bottom line with those is that I'll never again put cattle into the cubicles to feed them over the winter, because it's just not worth it. These ones were late born. Like some of these were calves were born in April and May the year before. And if I got them for nothing, they wouldn't suit the system here, those type of calves. So that's I suppose something I've learned. Like some of them put on 0.5 of a kg a day over the winter. So I think feeding them a couple of kgs of cubes, whether it's the stuff you buy or the stuff you mix yourself, probably a prerequisite. But as a guy said to me online then on boards again, feeding them will only do so much if the genetics aren't in them. So I suppose there's a bit of that too. Now, I'm not going to beat myself up over it too much. I let that to everybody else. But it's just something that I'm not going to do again anyway. So lesson learned on those cattle. That's it then, a quick update in this video. And I suppose apologies, it's been a week since my last confession. It's just that kind of a busy time. I was in the office job this week. I was trying to get the shed set up. I drove to almost 2 different counties to see the calves that I was buying. And it was all a bit of a mad dash. So it's hard then to get the camera out in the meantime. But I'm off from the office job now for the next nearly 2 weeks. I have a few days and then I'm off nearly for 2 weeks. I'll have a little bit more to show as the calves arrive, and it'll be a bit more positive with the calves arriving. I'm looking forward to it. It's lovely to get the smell of the milk powder when I was in the car and just throwing it into the little cubby hole there yesterday. It's a nice smell. And when the young lads came over yesterday, it was the first thing they said when they went into the shed. What's that nice smell? It's a nice time of year. It's just a busy time of the year. What I'm looking forward to as well as the calves arriving is essentially being a full-time farmer for the next 2 weeks. I remember it from the last couple of years. I used to do it when the sheep were lambing. I'd take time off, and when the last year then and 2 years ago when the calves were arriving, I'd take a little bit of time off from the office job too. And it's nice to just have that singular focus on the farm and the family only. They're kind of important too. So anyway, look, we'll get into it next week when the calves start arriving, and I've kind of pulled my hair out a few times, and then I'll turn the camera on again, and I'll have something to show you, hopefully, that will be of interest. So thanks a million for watching. We'll talk to you soon, and mind yourselves. Good luck.